Hey, what's up? Welcome to Offshore Audio. I'm Andrew, I'm a live sound engineer, and in this channel, I'm bringing you tips and tricks to help you mix better live events. And to mix live events, you really need your hearing. But as sound engineers, sometimes we're not the best at taking care of our hearing, actually, even though we should be the ones that are the most aware of it. So in this video, I'm going to cover the sort of best practices for protecting your hearing while still mixing great events. If you're really impatient and you just want my best practices, wear hearing protection, try to only take it out for maximum total 15 minutes during a show, and try and turn down. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the sort of research behind hearing loss, look at some of the ways that we can protect our hearing, and then I'll give you a kind of detailed breakdown of my recommendation and how I came to sort of that level. Before we dive in, I've got something for you if you're just getting started mixing live events, and that is my 3-step guide to perfect EQ. This is just a PDF cheat sheet that you can use to see my best practices and the 3 steps that I always follow to EQ basically anything at any show. And you can get that by heading to offshoreaudio.no/EQ, or you can click on the link in the description below this video. But without further ado, let's dive in. So we pretty much all understand that loud noises are bad for our hearing, right? But yet we're sound engineers and we sort of willingly put ourselves into that situation almost every day. But one of the main things that I took away from some of the research that I did on this matter was that some education, sort of education around the area, being aware of the problem of hearing damage is really helpful. And it's one of the main problems here is that people aren't aware of the damage that they're doing. So I'm going to try and make you a little bit more aware of that. And remember, if there's one thing you take away from this section is that doing something to protect your hearing is much better than doing nothing. And we'll see a little bit more about that. Let's talk numbers. So there are various government organizations in various countries. I looked mostly into the US and the UK, but they recommend a sort of daily exposure limit, right? And just to throw a number out there, it's usually something between 80 decibels and 85 decibels over 8 hours. And this is dBA. That means that it's A-weighted to sort of approximate the frequency response of your ear. Think about it like a fuel tank that you are going to burn through. And this 85 decibel average, I'm just going to run with 85 for now because it's quite difficult to even get to 80 decibels in even sort of any concert situation. So we'll run with 85. So let's say you have a fuel tank, and when that fuel tank is empty, your ears are buggered, right? If you're running through that fuel tank at 85 decibels, that means that the volume is 85 decibels continuously for your entire 8-hour workday. Then basically it's going to take you 8 hours to burn through this full fuel tank. Now, as with a car, if you drive faster, you burn more fuel, and if you drive slower, you burn less fuel. So if you drive slower, you can go a further distance. If you drive faster, you get there quicker, but you won't be able to travel as far a distance. The same sort of thing applies to hearing, in that if you turn the volume down, you will be able to mix for much longer, or you will be able to be in that loud environment for much longer without hearing damage. And if you turn it up, you will have a significantly shorter amount of time before you start to damage your hearing. Now, if we follow the guidelines of one of these organizations, they state that a 3 decibel increase in the volume results in a halving of the amount of exposure time, right? So let's go back to this fuel tank analogy. If we're listening at 85 decibels, we're going to burn through all of our fuel in 8 hours. If we listen at 88 decibels, we will burn through all of our fuel in 4 hours. And similarly, if we go up another 3 decibels to 91 decibels, we're going to burn through it in 2 hours. And so on until you get to just over 100 decibels, and you're going to burn through all of that in 15 minutes. That means that if you're mixing at 100 decibels with no hearing protection, after 15 minutes, your hearing is getting pounded. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of where you start to see damage in your hearing. Though it's worth noting that lots of these different organizations have different numbers, and this is not a sort of universally agreed upon standard, but certainly, hopefully now you know a little bit more about when and how your hearing is damaged and how much you can safely expose yourself to. Let's talk a little bit about the protection then, because this number, this fuel consumption that we talked about, only applies to what's going into your ears. So if you were to, say, put in earplugs that reduced the sound pressure level going into your ears by 20 decibels, you essentially are moving your 100 decibel limit down to 80, if you follow me, right? Because it's 100 decibels in the room, you've got a 20 decibel barrier in your ears, and that means the exposure to your ears is 80 decibels. So now you understand that if we had 8 hours at 85 decibels, we've got 16 hours at 82 decibels. If you're down at 80 decibels with your hearing protection, that means that you can mix for essentially forever without damaging your hearing, if you're using hearing protection. Now, there's a few different types of hearing protection you can use, right? You've got these little foam earplugs that sort of just block out noise. Depending on the type of foam earplug that you buy, these can be quite a significant reduction in sound pressure levels. I've heard some people say that they reduce up to 30 decibels, but I find that these are really, really impractical for a couple of reasons. One, they take some time to expand in your ears. Two, they're really inconvenient. And three, the frequency response is just not a consideration when these products are developed. They're designed to protect you, not allow you to hear accurately. The second thing we can look for is reusable earplugs that are designed for musicians or with music in mind. And quite often, these products have a frequency response chart, so you can see exactly how much attenuation, that is reduction of noise, you're getting over each frequency band roughly, and they might show you this for 8 frequency bands. So that gives you an idea of like how much actual protection that you're getting, and they also have an average protection rate so that you can use this to estimate how much time you can be exposed to that noise for. The third type of hearing protection that you've got there is, of course, custom molded earplugs. These are going to give you sort of the most even frequency response with great sound reduction because they are custom molded to your ears. But obviously, they come with a pretty hefty price tag. Now, another sort of main method that we should be considering for protecting our hearing is turning it down, because more and more it's easy to get a great sounding show at lower volumes. And there's been some sort of anecdotal research that I've come across that has shown that people's enjoyment of a concert is not necessarily lessened by having a quieter concert. You hear people say stuff like, well, metal needs to be loud, but people's perception of what is loud is different. And really, if you're delivering a great mix at a low volume, then you're really winning. Consider turning it down. So with all of that in mind, let's talk about my personal recommendations, and now you can get a bit of an idea of how I came to these recommendations for you. So obviously, the first thing I want you to do is turn down slightly, because if you can turn down by 3 decibels, which is not a huge amount, you are going to double the amount of time that you have with no hearing protection, that you can make great mixing decisions with your ears without any sort of alteration to the frequency response of your ears through hearing protection. So the first thing you want to do is turn down. Even 1 decibel, 2 decibels makes a difference. The second thing I'm going to recommend is that you only remove your earplugs for 15 total minutes during your show. And here's why I'm recommending that. We've just talked about the damage that can happen to your ears at 100 decibels. Let's assume that you're mixing a show at 100 decibels, you get 15 minutes before damage. Now, lots of people say, I can't mix with earplugs and it affects my frequency response. But I want to say to those people, is your mix position in an absolutely optimal position? Are you placed directly in the perfect sort of stereo image of your speakers? I severely doubt it. A lot of the time we're sort of crammed in a corner. The frequency response that we hear is already quite affected by our location. So we as sound engineers should be moving out into the venue to listen, hear what happens, and then we move back to the mixer to make our adjustments. I'm just suggesting that you do the same with your hearing protection. You move out into the room, remove your hearing protection for 20 seconds, listen, make a decision, put your hearing protection back in, and then return to your mixer, make that alteration. If you're spending 30 seconds with your hearing protection out before you make a decision, you have time for 30 separate decision-making moments in your sort of showtime. If you can turn the volume of your show down by 3 decibels, you have 60 decision moments that you can take out. Because really, you don't need to have your hearing protection out to make those adjustments on the mixer. Now, here's a couple of other best practices that I want to suggest for hearing protection, right? Buy reusable hearing protection and make sure you get good quality hearing protection. How do you find out about that? Hearing protection should have a frequency response chart on it. It should have been measured what the drop off is in high frequency or low frequency when you put these earplugs in. That way you can adjust your hearing to having these earplugs in, and you can think to yourself, okay, that guitar sounds a little muffled, but yeah, it's fine actually. I know that because my high frequency response is tapered off. I want you to also make sure that they have switchable filters. That is, you can adjust the total attenuation in this hearing protection, because that allows you to use hearing protection even in slightly quieter environments like spoken word. Say the spoken word is at 90 decibels, you still want to get that below 85 really. So why don't you have hearing protection that only has 8 decibels of gain reduction? Again, still with an even frequency response. I use these Alpine hearing protection Music Safe Pros. They're not sponsoring me or anything, but I can recommend them. I think they're really, really great, and they come with a sort of cord. That means that I can have them around my neck, and so they're in, and then when they're not in, I just take them out and I tuck them into my shirt, and I know that they won't go anywhere. So that's what I recommend. And ideally, you should choose your hearing protection in other loud environments, not just concerts. I mean, if you go to a club, definitely take that with you. Sometimes the cinema is crazy loud as well. If you've got those little like 8 decibel reductions, pop them in. Enjoy your film. I promise after 5 minutes, you won't even know that you've got them. My final recommendation to you is, if you're out and about and you're listening to music, listening to podcasts, listening to the radio, buy noise cancelling headphones or noise cancelling earbuds or anything with noise cancellation, active noise cancellation that is, because that allows you to filter out the sound outside, which allows you to reduce the volume that you're listening at. By reducing the volume that you listen to your music and podcasts at, you're protecting your hearing even when you're out and about. So I hope that was helpful. As I mentioned at the start of the video, if you're getting started, head to offshoreaudio.no/EQ to grab that free 3-step EQ guide. And also I'll leave a few links around about the video when it's done to take you on to other videos that help you get your system set up and sounding great so that you can mix great shows. And then when you're mixing great shows, you can protect your hearing. But for now, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.